President's Convocation. I hereby convene these proceedings. Please remain standing as James Tower of the local Friends meeting gives us the invocation. Would the men please remove their caps?
Will you pray with me? Gracious God, we thank you for calling us from all over the world, all over this country, to be together, to be invested in by wonderful teachers and faculty that care for us and want us to grow and strive to be the best that we can be, to be fully what God is calling us to be. And I just pray, Lord, as we're called together here, that your grace would be at work in us and through us, that you would help us to be receptive to the lessons that we might learn, that you would help us to see the future and the rest of this year with hope and expectation, and that we would just be open to the things that you have for us. Just ask that you'd bless these proceedings, that you would help us as we come together to have hearts that are open, minds that are open, ears that are open for the wisdom and the things that you would teach us today. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
It's my pleasure and honor to welcome you to a new year at William Penn University. For those of us who have chosen to make our careers here, it's always an exciting and a vibrant time of year as we open the campus for fall classes and we welcome new students and say hello to familiar faces that have become our family in more ways than one. You as students this year represent a student body that represents 42 states and 20 other countries. That's a unique opportunity for all of us, and I will discuss that more later. But understand what I hope you understand by the end of Irving's remarks, what a great opportunity that can be to enrich your lives and to grow. I'd like to take a moment to introduce some special guests. First, the platform party. I don't know how special they are. They had to be here, but we'll start with that. Anita Meinert is our chair of our humanities department. James Tower, who you already met, is the pastor of our home and founding church that's just 3 blocks away from campus if you take a short walk from the gym. Tom Showalter, seated next to him, who will give our benediction, is the head of the Iowa Yearly Meeting, which is the association where all the local Quaker meetings are a part of. Dr. Irving Jones, who I will introduce more deeply later. Next to him is Dr. Noel Staley, our Vice President for Academic Affairs. Dr. James Drost, who is the co-chair of the Applied Technology Department. David Meinert, who is the head of our Business Division. Kathy Williamson, who is the head of our Education Division. Dr. Michael Collins, who is the chair of the Social and Behavioral Sciences. Linda Parker, who's the Vice President for our Online and Evening Division. And Monty Boferum, who is the chair for the Undergraduate Studies in that division. Also in the audience, we have at least 3 trustees, Jerry Ellis, who's the chair of our board, Joe Kirkham, who's the vice chair, and Sam Ritchie, who is also on the executive committee, and other local leaders from the community comprise our board of advisors. We'd like to thank them all for being here. Applaud. That's a good time to applaud. Lastly, let me introduce your student body president, who will introduce the rest of your student government. She's a junior from a small town in Minnesota and has become very active in all kinds of ways on campus life, active and energetic, and quite frankly, is sometimes too active and sarcastic with at least the president. So would you please welcome Carly Schmaltz.
Thank you. Like you said, my name is Carly Schmaltz. I'm the president of the Student Government Association. In this front row, we have the rest of the SGA. We have Sophie Lund, who is our vice president. Noelle Lubers. Noelle Lubers is our treasurer. Jonathan Ward is our administrative officer. Amanda Nance is our events coordinator. Alyssa Carey is our public relations. And Taylor Carter is our student life. We are here to be your leaders on campus. If there's ever anything that you guys want brought to us, come and visit us in PAC 210. That's where our office is located. We're here to make your experience the best that it possibly can be. I hope that you all have a great year and that you get involved. And then also, on Tuesday and Wednesday, we have a photographer coming in, so please wear a William Penn shirt during those 2 days. Please don't wear any inappropriate clothing or any clothing from different universities. Please wear a William Penn shirt. So, thank you.
Since Carly admonished you to do some things next week, I want to talk a little bit about convocation etiquette, okay? I was going to tell you to turn off all your cell phones and other electronic equipment, but I had a couple of students tell me that's what they were going to take notes on. So if you're taking notes on electronic media, but please turn off the sound and silence your phones. Also, at the end of this program, after Tom Showalter has given the benediction, the etiquette is that as you stood as we walked in, you stand and let the platform party exit. You know, it was interesting. We talked about students from 42 states and what a gold mine that is, but as Carly was introducing the SGA, that diversity is there too. We have Mississippi, Iowa, Oregon, Denmark, Missouri, Iowa, and Minnesota represented in your SGA. Get involved. That's what will make all the difference here. Before I introduce fully Dr. Jones, I want to tell you a little bit about this university that you've chosen to make your home, that all of us have chosen to make your home. It has a legacy that is unique, and it has a heritage that we should all be proud of. But it also calls us to action to continue what others have modeled before us. Penn was founded by Quaker pioneers. Our home church is the Society of Friends just 3 blocks away. The foundational belief of that founding was that there is God, that of God in everyone. Putting it perhaps in more modern lingo, there is value in everyone. So stop and think about that for a moment. In a time when nationally and globally it seems to become commonplace that if someone has a different opinion or belief or background than we do, then it's okay to view them as our enemy. That can't be if we are to move forward personally, nationally, collectively. The belief that there's value or that of God in everyone should call us to understand that true success and progress occurs as we learn to disagree reasonably and work together to improve our lives. Obviously, this process at times is difficult because we're humans and we all make mistakes. If you want to look hard enough, you will find mistakes and errors in everyone's lives. But since we all have that of God within ourselves, we can find our commonalities and work for the greater good. Penn has always been intentionally diverse. Our first graduate in 1875 was female at a time when women didn't attend college. Our first graduate of color was 1902, 114 years ago. I have pictures hanging in my office for those of you who have been in, and for those of you who haven't, come on in. Let me get to know you. And articles from the mid-1940s that clearly show diversity, and an article that spells it out. In 1947, we had grown from 100 students to all of 247 students from 24 states, 2 other countries, and 22 different religions on campus. In short, what you see today, who we are today, is who we always have been and who we always will be. But diversity for diversity's sake is not why we are that way. What drives Penn and what makes us special and can make your time special is our commitment to what unites us, and that the ideal of the value of every individual is real. It is a belief that we have much to learn from each other. It is the understanding that each of us can make a difference in our sphere of influence. We can each make the world a better place. That is something I experienced in the 80s when I was a student here. First one in my family to go to school, college, as many of you are. From an immigrant family, I immigrated from Sweden when I was 3. It's what Irving experienced in the 1970s. Not that that experience didn't have challenges along the way, but it was a life-changing experience. That can still happen if you want it to be. I received a letter the other day from a father of a young lady who just graduated and is now in med school. And this is the opening lines. I'm not going to read it all. I knew when our family agreed that Jing was going to attend William Penn University that she would have a good education experience. I was wrong. I underestimated what a wonderful learning adventure William Penn would become for Jing. Now, this young lady immigrated from China when she was 7 and grew up in Los Angeles. And there's a culture shock for those of us who came from big cities to Oskaloosa, Iowa, right? But somehow it became a wonderful learning adventure for her. But whether it will or not is totally up to you. Irving and I experienced in similar ways, but from entire different life experiences, the change that can happen when we understand there's that of God in every person. That can enrich our lives. I was in a conversation with some good friends of mine the other day, one of them who happens to be one of our board members, and he and his wife and I were talking about current events and some concern about what we see, and they coined a phrase together that I think is perfect. We need to understand our similarities so we can celebrate our differences. Okay. Do we understand that? Irving certainly does. I want to take a few moments to introduce him so you can understand what an impressive career he has had, and what he would tell you is his career accomplishments has not given him the satisfaction in his life. But he came from the Bronx, the projects, and arrived in Oskaloosa, Iowa in the fall of 1971. And if you think it's small now, it was just as small then, but it was Penn was surrounded by cornfields. He came here to play football, and he had a great career. So he understands the balance of athletics and academics. He spent 34 years in public education. He received his bachelor's degree from Penn, his master's of education degree in educational administration from the University of Virginia, and his doctorate degree from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University. He moved through the ranks first as an English teacher to a high school principal and then as assistant superintendent. He has initiated a variety of mentorship programs for both students and teachers, developed partnerships between private industry, community college, universities, and high school. He is a recognized leader on topics of educational leadership and now is a consultant for schools in inner cities and urban areas and elsewhere across the country. He has presented at international, national, state, and local conferences on topics such as minority student achievement, dropout prevention, interdisciplinary instruction, supervision of instruction, teaching strategies that engage, career pathways, on and on and on. In 2002, he was recognized as the outstanding high school principal for Virginia, and later that year was recognized as the National Principal of the Year for the entire country. He obviously has had a great career. He has volunteered for his entire life in organizations such as 100 Black Men of Central Virginia, the United Way, the Martha Jefferson Hospital Board, the Executive Board of CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocates. He's involved in his church. He has a balance in his life. He thrived at William Penn. He has thrived throughout the rest of his life. Please welcome a member of the Penn family, Dr. Irving Jones.
Take off that hat. Thank you. Good morning, Penn. Good morning, Penn.
All right, let's get rowdy up in here, y'all. It's not passive up in here. We're going to have some fun. I'm so blessed to be here. God bless you all, and all praise and honor to God. Start there first. Start there first. Thank you for the amen. I want some more amens as we go on, because I got something to tell y'all. All right? We're going to have church up in here today. Oh, I may not even need my speech. I'm going to try to behave. I know it's really hard for me to behave, but I'm going to have to tell the minister right up front, you're going to hear some things that may not be so Christian a little later, but I'm going to tell the truth. I just warn you, if you get your feelings hurt quickly, don't listen. Thanks, Dr. Allison. We've had a wonderful couple of days, and that introduction was wonderful. Certainly an honor for me to be here. But an interesting thing happened to me when I got in. I lived down in Georgia. Anybody from Georgia out here? Right on, right on. 75, Beltway, my man. But interesting thing happened. I walk into the Atlanta airport, and this group of ladies come up to me, and they said, T.D. Jakes, T.D. Jakes, would you put hands on me? I said, no, man, my name is Irving Jones, and I'm heading out to Iowa to William Penn College to make a presentation at the Convocation. So we get to Dallas, Fort Worth, and I get off the plane, and there's a group of elderly ladies sitting there, and they run up to me, T.D. Jakes, T.D. Jakes, would you please lay hands on me? I said, no, I'm not T.D. Jakes. My name's Irving Jones. I'm headed to William Penn to make a speech. Well, I land in Des Moines, and I get off the plane, and this beautiful young lady's walking towards me. And I'm like, whoa. I said, my God. Now, I just got to tell you straight up front, I'm married. I ain't dead. But she walked up to me, and she was just smiling. Oh, T.D. Jakes, T.D. Jakes, would you lay hands on me? I said, bless you, my child. I told you we were going to have a good time up in here today. So I'm going to follow the public speaker's 3 B's. Be good, be brief, and be gone, okay? So my topic today is my past, our future, or our present, and your future. So let me start with my past. You've just heard that great introduction, and now I got to tell you the whole story. I grew up in the Patterson Projects in the South Bronx, and no one knew what type of man I would be. But I did have some advantages. I had 2 parents and 2 crazy older brothers. My dad, Big Herman didn't play. Big Herman looked like a wall. He's just built like this, you know. My ring finger is size 12. His was size 24, okay? So 2 of my fingers were one of his. So when he snatched you, he snatched all of you, okay? And my mother, they had high hopes for their boys, more than the world that we grew up in. Having migrated from the rural South before World War II, my father had a 3rd grade education. My mother was a high school graduate from a trade school for girls. We were made aware of a few very basic rules. Rule number 1 was mandatory church attendance. It was not optional. My mother was the superintendent of Sunday school, and my father was a deacon. We didn't have no breaks. We went Sunday all day. Had to come home from church and take a shower to wash some of Jesus off of you. It was rough. She went to all the services. Well, Mom, I'm sorry, don't slap me. I feel that slap coming about right now. Rule number 2 was work hard and behave in school. And the last major rule was to be in before the streetlights came on. Rule number 2 was a challenge for me. So let me give you the backdrop of my early schooling experiences. First of all, in the late 1950s, New York City was still very segregated by neighborhood. Kindergarten through 1st grade were wonderful for me because I had Miss Boozer. Now, Miss Boozer, She was about 4 foot tall, 4 foot wide. But she loved everybody. And every day you came in, she made you feel loved, cared for, valued. And every day you ran up there, you had to get your hug. You got to get a morning hug, you had to get a midday hug, and you had to get a hug before you left. That was the first 3 years of my schooling experience. And then when they were desegregating schools in the South, they called it rezoning in New York. And for the first time, the Black and Hispanic kids were able to go to predominantly white school up on the hill called PS 31. Buses were not provided for the Black and Hispanic kids that lived almost a mile away, but they were provided for the white kids who lived about 2 or 3 blocks away. Something just wasn't right about that. But no one questioned it because our parents strongly believed that we would receive a better education at the predominantly white school than the community school that was poorly funded, had outdated textbooks, and a very young and inexperienced staff. However, at the new school, there were no Miss Boozers. They were middle-aged and very old white women who did not make us feel welcome. At best, they tolerated our presence. We were quickly and randomly dispersed into the general population. I had one question to ask my teacher, Miss Wilson, why are all the black kids in the back of the classroom? She wouldn't answer me. Miss Wilson, why are all the black kids in the back of the classroom? So she ignored me and kept on teaching and talking to other students. But being the militant midget that I was, I kept on asking the question. She told me to shut up. Well, it was on then. Oh, my mama didn't tell me to shut up. You gonna tell me to shut up? I did everything I could think of to get on her last nerve. Finally, I broke her down. She said, Irving Cornelius Jones. Now, you know you're in trouble when they use your whole name. You know, your whole Irving Cornelius Jones, that takes like a breath to say, you know. I know I plucked a lesson. She said, you are stupid and incorrigible. And if you look up the word in the dictionary, I would see your picture. Now, I'm in 3rd grade. Think about that. I'm in 3rd grade. I was so embarrassed, and I'm mad. You know, when a little kid pout, he mad, little fat kid? I had on my mad look. In my mind, I said, I'm going to get her. So other kids laughed. I quietly went back to my seat and pulled out the dictionary. And I looked up the word incorrigible. And I was really embarrassed because I didn't know what the word meant. And incorrigible, bad beyond reform or correction. Now, how could some grown person say that to a 3rd grader? You know, and I'm thinking at 3rd grade, darn, she don't have any respect for me, even at 3rd grade. So, I politely raised my hand, and after 3 or 4 minutes, Miss Wilson acknowledged me. So I stood up, I said, Miss Wilson, I looked up the word incorrigible, and I didn't see my picture next to it. But I did look up the word ugly, and there was your picture right there. And of course, I showed my classmates the picture of the witch that was, you know, they denoted as ugly. And they laughed till they fell out their seats. She turned red as a beet. But before she could scream at me, I couldn't stop there. I had it now. I said, I might be stupid, but I'll get smarter. But you're going to always be ugly. I could have stopped there even. But she upset this little boy. And I said, Miss Wilson, you're so ugly, if they put a collar on your behind and walk you backwards, you look like a bulldog. That wasn't the smartest thing for me to do, but it felt good. The other kids laughed so hard. The principal who was down on the 1st floor, I'm on the 5th floor. He heard the noise and ran up there, and by the time he got there, Miss Wilson was in tears. And that was my first trip to the principal's office. Mr. Thor was a very nice man. He asked me what happened, and when I told him, he looked like he wanted to laugh. But he asked me to wait outside the office while he called my father at work. Now, Big Herman wasn't happy when he arrived because he had to leave work and lose money. But he assured Mr. Thor it would be handled at home. That was a long death march, man. That mile down that hill, it's like, I still think the licking was worth it because Miss Wilson never embarrassed another kid, ever. And if she's in heaven, probably not, but if she is, there was a pattern of behavior I developed in those formative years that was not about being right, but being treated fairly. And I often spoke out when I saw others being treated unfairly. And it often resulted in me going to see Mr. Thor, or the other principals I got to know. I got to know all my principals very well. You might say I was getting trained for my future career. People thought my parents were teachers because they were always up at the school for my behavior. But at one point, my parents asked, what are teachers doing to make my child behave the way he is? They wanted to label me special education, but I scored in the upper 10% on all standardized tests. And to her credit, my mother would not let them put a label on me. However, it did not stop some teachers tell me I wouldn't amount to much, even though I outscored 90% of the students in grades 3 through 6. No sense of encouragement, no care, no love, no Miss Boozer. The pattern of behavior continued through junior high school years, but academically I was a strong student. But I continued to rebel against things that I believed were unjust, and I kept getting in trouble. When I look back, it might have been difficult if someone took an interest. It might have been different if someone took an interest in me and made me feel valued. Well, that happened in high school with the football coach, Mr. Prezioso. Not only was I athletic, I had a winning attitude, and he helped me channel that inner rage I often felt to apply it on the football field. DeWitt Clinton was a football powerhouse in the Bronx and in New York City. It was 7,500 all boys. We would literally have 400, 500 guys come out to try out for the football team. So if you made the team, you was almost guaranteed a scholarship somewhere in the country. And it was real funny because we were Bronx champs that year, my senior year. And we were being recruited from schools all over the country, got letters from Fordham University, Virginia State, and other schools. But then I got a call from Coach Hickman from William Penn College. I didn't know where Iowa was, okay? And he was offering me a scholarship to play football. And one of their standout players was Wilbur Young, who I knew from my older brother playing against him, and when he attended Monroe High School, which was our rival high school. But what I didn't know was Coach Prezioso had sent the film to Coach Hickman, had talked to my father, and I was getting set up. Unknown to me that my parents knew Wilbur's parents. My dad had worked with his dad at the post office in World War II. His mother attended the same church in Harlem for many years, so the fix was in. And before I knew it, I was on a plane to William Penn College in Oskaloosa, Iowa. My friends just laughed at me, so Oscar who? Where is it? Couldn't even find it on the map. But I have to tell you about my first plane ride. Never been on a jet before, but back in those days, it had limited first class, but I had a student pass, and they put me in first class. And I guess at 17, I look a lot older than I was. So I was visibly nervous. You know, when you hear that engine take off, like, zzz. And the lady, the stewardess came to me, she said, you look awfully nervous. Can I help you out? I said, yeah, I've never flown before. She said, well, when we get up in there, I got something special for you. I said, what is that? I said, I got a drink for you. A drink? Really? What is it? She said, Irish coffee. Unbeknownst to me, there's alcohol, Irish whiskey, and Irish coffee. After my 6th Irish coffee, I landed in Des Moines, surrounded by cornfields, dark. Coach Hickman picked me up, threw me in the van. He said, are you drunk? No, I ain't drunk. I had some Irish coffees. They were awfully tasty. And so we drove to Oskaloosa, Iowa. When we got up to the gym, it was totally dark. He turned out the lights. I screamed. I did. I've never been a place where there's no street lights. Like, no street lights. No, not even starlight. Not even moonlight. It was dark. It was dark. It blew my mind. But after football season, one of the things that I have to say about William Penn, the first impression I had, and this sounds crazy, but I didn't know God made so many white people. There was a lot of y'all. I was surrounded by y'all. There was nowhere to run. Couldn't go home. I had a few white friends. They go, Tom, he had my back on the football field. God bless him. But that scared me to death. You don't know how getting out of your environment has that impact on you. And many of you are experiencing that now. But other than Wilbur, who had been drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, I really didn't know anyone. But soon enough, I met other black students. Where's Boo Boo? Boo Boo, right on, Power Check. There's my girl. We graduated together. She came all the way up here from Des Moines to see me. I ain't said one. Give her a hand, round of applause. That's my girl, Boo Boo. Cheryl Bowden. Yeah. That's my buddy. We were arm in arm in the struggle, weren't we? We had a good time, though. So when the students were registering for their class, so we're doing our 3-a-days. You football players, you know them 3-a-days? You don't got that hill, though, chumps. We had that hill. You remember that hill out back? Some of y'all on the stage remember that hill, right? And we had to mow down that hill. And the first time I run up the hill, a pheasant jumped up. I screamed like a banshee. I said, oh, Lord, have mercy. Where the hell am I? Mama, I want to go home. But after a few weeks, we're wondering, like, where are all the black women? Ain't no black women out here either. So I'm like, I was cool. I was cute back then, had a fro. I was, Hey. So when the students were registering, we saw the 4 African-American women in our freshman class. I think there might have been a total of 15 black students that year on campus, and that's a stretch. Needless to say, we were a very tightly knit group. However, if asked, we all had very different experiences here at Penn. Let me explain that. After a football season, I wanted to know more about Iowa. I befriended David Castle and his family. Dave was a psychology professor, and he was the first white man who I had an open conversation with about race and race relations here on campus. He invited me out to his farm and introduced me to shorthorn cattle. I was fascinated. I mean, cows that weren't in the supermarket, packed, ready to eat. Y'all think that's funny? I was scared to death. Real farm, and it just made me feel good. And in return, through our class, I introduced him to city games like buck, kick the can, and stickball. Until his death, we were great friends, and I still stay in touch with his family. Then there was the Rileys, who owned the photo shop down off the square. Some of you may remember them. I had my picture. They took a portrait picture of me and put it in the front of their store. Every time I went down there, I said, ain't that boy look good? Big old fro, And they were wonderful people. They invited me into their home. And then there was Bob Addis. Is Bob here? There's Bob, stand up. Give that man a round of applause. My man. Bob owned the sporting goods store, and I played football with his son, Brad, and he was just a wonderful man. Nobody could beat Mr. Adams in arm wrestling. I lifted 350 pounds, and he would still beat me in arm wrestling. I'll get you after the show. But how wonderful that was. I mean, he just opened up his heart to us. We talked. He wanted to visit New York. I said, nah, brother, I got to meet you downtown. You can't come to the Bronx. I said, nah, well, I'll catch you down on 42nd Street. We'll have a nice bite to eat, put you back on a plane. But we've been friends for a lot of years, and God bless you. And then Alan Bowman. Alan, can you stand up for me, please? Please stand up. One of my professors. God bless him. 94 years old. But I got to tell you about Alan. So Alan had a horse over there by your dorm. Remember what? You know where I'm going with this, Alan. Remember Sugar? Was that the name? I think I got it right. Sugar. Anyway, it was a trained quarter horse. I didn't know a darn thing about horses. I ain't never seen a horse except a carousel in Central Park. So him and his daughter take me out there, and I say, well, how you get a horse? And my dumb behind is chasing the horse. Charles running away like, you stupid ass. You can't catch me. I said, well, how do you get the horse to come to you? So they got out a pail and just tapped the pail with oats in it. Duh. Showed me how to put the bridle. This is the bridle. This is the blanket, the saddle, and I never rode before. But I got on, and after I got the hang of it, I was an Irving cowboy. So I thank Alan for that experience. I will tell you that in the little town of William Penn and the town of Oskaloosa became my laboratory. I stepped out of my comfort zone. I invited white students and community members to the Black House down on Market Street. Now, the Black House that you won't know was the Black Cultural Center. And the year before I came, black students band together, protested, because they didn't want a frat house. They wanted a cultural center where we could have a place to go, to talk, discuss, and bring people in to educate. And so we were opening up there conversations about race relations at Penn. We talked about not only race relations at Penn, but around the country. We provided a forum for discussion that opened the doors to understanding different cultures, our customs, our beliefs, and experience. We celebrated Black History Week with a variety of activities that engaged the entire student body and the community. I can remember being MC for the Andre Crouch concert, Andre Crouch was a Grammy Award-winning evangelist who performed in 1973 during Black History Week. And we ended it with the soul food dinner. We so enjoyed singing and having poetry readings at that dinner. I don't know what happened after we graduated to that celebration here on campus. I know there's no longer a Black House. And that was the bridge between a lot of people of good conscience who wanted to change the world the way it was in this troubling time in America. We're talking about Vietnam, unemployment, poverty, homelessness, riots, amid the aftermath of the 60s with the assassinations of Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy. There were some troubling times here in the United States in terms of race relations. So many white folks in the Midwest only saw negative images of black men and women in the media. When we went into stores here in Oskaloosa, it was not the exception, but the rule that we were followed around the store because someone thought we were going to steal from them. It was not the exception, but the rule that a black man or woman was more likely to be stopped by the local police while driving while black. It was the rule, not the exception, that when 4 or more black men or women were in a group talking, some white folks thought we were up to something. I know when I left William Penn, the experience that I had here made me want to be an agent of change. And I chose public education as my new laboratory to make this happen. When I left William Penn, I returned to New York talking English for 1 year, and then moved to a small town called Front Royal, Virginia. After spending 4 years in Iowa, the concrete jungle no longer held my attention, and I wanted another life experience. I secured a teaching job and rented a 60-acre farm and raised shorthorn cattle. My parents and friends thought I lost my mind. But the most rewarding feeling I had was when I was on that farm. I relived that experience for 7 years and then moved to Northern Virginia and went to work as an English teacher, teaching in Fairfax County, where I spent the next 15 years. After my 9th year teaching high school English, I was invited to become an intern for a master's degree in the educational administration at the University of Virginia. I was granted sabbatical leave from Fairfax County and allowed to attend school full time. I did not know that I would be the first African American in this program. At UVA, there was not a lot of black students at that time in the undergrad program. Now, in 1986, there were still some folks that believed the South really won the Civil War. And during the first week of class, I was crossing the bridge to the library when a very large white man, student, called me the N-word. And I asked him, "What did you say?" Because I didn't believe it. And not only did he say it again, he pushed me. Now, this is where I'm going to get unchristian. I'm just warning you. I opened up a can of whoop ass on him. I beat him for all the 400 years of oppression of black people. I beat him for the next white person that would ever use that word. I beat him for all his family members that ever used that word. I threw in a few licks for my grandmama and grandpapa that had to suffer the abuses of that word. Well, I felt bad afterwards. And there was a hearing the next day, and I was sure I would be thrown out of Mr. Jefferson's University in Virginia. They think Mr. Jefferson's still alive. But to my surprise, I told my story, and I was asked to return to class and resume my studies. I don't know what happened to the student, but I can assure you he never used that word again. I guess the thing that saved me, there were 3 witnesses there that saw what happened, and I did not instigate it. And that probably saved my career, because I could have been probably charged with assault. I beat them pretty bad. Would I do it again? Probably not. I've grown up a little bit. But that's about maturity. We got to learn to handle issues differently. Now, don't think I'm going to let you beat on me. But don't insult me while you're pushing me. And it's a hard lesson for some people to learn. I was a good Christian man, I thought at that time. I'm better now, 30 more years later. I returned to Fairfax County, became assistant principal, was good at it. After 7 years, I applied for principal jobs, but were denied. Many white assistant principals that I trained were getting principal's jobs, but I was continued to be overlooked. There were 7 other black men who were in the same position and also denied the principal jobs. So I decided to make an appointment with the superintendent and ask him why black men were being overlooked. So he gave us the company line that we weren't really ready and just be patient, your turn will come. Well, we all applied to other school districts and become principals. In the course of my tenure in Fairfax County in 1989, I reunited with my high school sweetheart, Jeanette, after breaking up 20 years earlier. We got married, and 3 years later, Irving Jr. was born. 28 years later, we still are happily married. And our son is out on his own and out of my pocket. And your parents will be as happy as I was when y'all leave home. So a message to you young men out there in terms of picking a mate. People, my friends call me henpecked. I don't mind being henpecked as long as I was pecked by the right hand. So keep that in mind. Some of the married women out there say, yeah, I got him now, right? So in 1993, I left Fairfax County to become principal in Utica, New York, turned the school around from a low-performing school to positioning it to meet state standards. After 4 years, I moved back to Virginia's Albemarle County and opened up a new school, Monticello High School. In the 4 years, the school met full accreditation requirements. We had the lowest performing students in the county, and in 4 years, we exceeded local and state standards. We created an environment where all students felt valued as individuals, regardless of their race, their sex, or sexual orientation. We created a real community school with a teacher-student mentor program. We developed partnerships with the University of Virginia and the local community college. We had one of the most active parent organizations in the state, and our students were outperforming most of the schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia. In 2003, as was stated, I was named the National Principal of the Year. Who would have ever thought a black kid from the Bronx would have did that? Nobody. Nobody. But it could be you. It could be all of you. Because the expectations were so low, all I could do is rise to low expectations. I completed my doctorate in education administration, and when I did that, I just need to move into our present. I'd like to share with you some of our current reality in the United States of America. Currently, the annual dropout rate in the U.S. is 3,030,000 students. Dropout rate in ninth grade is about 36%. Crimes committed in U.S. by high school dropouts are 75%. U.S. jobs that high school student dropouts are not eligible for is about 90%. African Americans constitute nearly 1 million of the total 2.3 million incarcerated population and have nearly 6 times the incarceration rate of whites. Read Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. From the 100 Girl Project, for every 100 women enrolled in college, 77 men are enrolled. For every 100 girls diagnosed with emotional disturbances, 324 boys are diagnosed with emotional disturbances. For every 100 females aged 15 to 19 that commit suicide, 549 males in the same range commit suicide. For every 100 women ages 18 to 21 in correctional facilities, 1,430 men are in correctional facilities. The only question I have is, what are we going to do about it? What is our current reality? Why do we all have a collective responsibility here? I want you to ask yourself that question. According to the PISA program for international students assessments, in the world with competing nations, the U.S. ranked 17th in reading, 23rd in science, and 32nd in mathematics. This is a national assessment given to 15-year-old students worldwide. let's talk about being career ready. In our current reality, you should be thinking about how you will leave this university with core academic skills and the ability to apply those skills to concrete situations in order to function in the workplace and in routine daily activities. You need to be thinking about developing your employability skills, such as critical thinking and responsibility, that are essential in any career area. And then you must also be thinking about technical job-specific skills relative to specific career pathways. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the current unemployment rate in the United States is 4.9%, but 3.8 million jobs in the U.S. still remain unfulfilled. 53.6% of bachelor degree holders under age 25 are jobless or underemployed. The top 4 bachelor degrees in the United States are 1, business, 2, general studies, 3, social science and history, and 4, psychology. The top 4 bachelor degrees in competing countries are 1, business, 2, engineering and technology, 3, computer and information science, and 4, health professions. Think about that. The good news is that the poverty rate dropped to 13.4% from 14.5%, and the median household income, just yesterday was reported, rose by 5%. This is our current reality. Our country and our world are facing many challenges, but I believe we have the collective power to do something about it. But what we are missing is having the collective will to change the world we live in. But we must start right here at home. Let's start with race. We still live in a country that is still divided by race. We don't feel comfortable talking about it, but the same conversation that I had on this campus over 40 years ago must continue. You have the same opportunity that I had when I was a student here, and that is to make this university your laboratory for change, and that change must begin in each and every one of you. You need to experience the varying cultures and beliefs and values of the people sitting right next to you. This university provides for you an opportunity to be an example for the whole country. If you are honest and can recognize that our differences are our strengths, regardless of race, religion, sex, or sexual orientation, this is the time to build bridges. We have a presidential candidate that is telling us to build a wall. And I'm telling you, I want to live in a country that builds bridges. I don't care what your political affiliations are. I was raised to be respectful of other political, social, and religious beliefs without making them my enemy. As an African-American Democrat, on June 12, 1987, I was proud that Ronald Reagan had the gumption to tell Mr. Gorbachev to tear down that wall. And here we are in 2016 with the fool talking about building a wall to keep Mexicans out. At the bottom of the Statue of Liberty is inscribed, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." That means something to Americans. Now, on a side note, I'm a little ticked, because that didn't apply to African Americans. We got a one-way ticket over here. I'm trying to get over that though, okay? But we still have to deal with our history and understand our past to make our present better and make our future much better. Your free future. Young people, this future belongs to you. When I was sitting there in your place 40 years ago, I believed that I could make a difference in somebody's life other than my own. And I knew if I did that, my life would be better. If I had to make a list of guiding principles that would make your journey towards your future success possible, they would be the following: responsibility, contemplation, initiative, perseverance, optimism, respect, compassion, adaptability, honesty, trustworthiness, loyalty, and courage. Take on the responsibility first for yourself and your actions, and at the same time, look out for your neighbor. Take on the responsibility for speaking up for those who feel they have no voice. The only time you should look down on someone is when you're giving them a hand to lift them up. Contemplate and think deeply about how you will become an agent for change. Develop a plan and set achievable goals. Take the initiative to stick to your plan and make adjustments when necessary. If you include others in your plan, make sure that they are on the same page you are in achieving your goals. If they are not, cut them loose and move on. Persevere, because there will always be someone who will try to derail your plan. There will be stormy and turbulent times when you are trying to do something good, especially for others. This is when you have to remember that life is not waiting for the storm to pass, but instead learning to dance in the rain. Be optimistic. Believe that the glass is half full and not half empty all the time. If you do, you'll never get depressed, and you will be a breath of fresh air to those who are depressed. Have respect for others, even if you don't agree with them. Learn to appreciate divergent points of view. Learn to give constructive criticism. Follow the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Spread love. Love one another. Have compassion for those around you who need guidance and your help in finding their way in life. Help someone create a plan of their own who lacks the organizational skills to do so on their own. However, at the same time, do not enable them to do nothing. Be able to adapt to changes that will take place in your life. Changes in employment, marriage, becoming a mother, a father, dealing with older parents, and even death of loved ones. Be honest and trustworthy at all times, because no one will trust a person that is not true to their own word or can't be trusted to keep their word. Be loyal to your ideals and goals and to those who you trust to be loyal to you. And have the courage to speak up when you hear others making inappropriate remarks about someone's race or religion or national origin, or when someone is telling a racist or demeaning joke. Let them know that this is not the world in which we want to live in. As I conclude my remarks, I think about a football analogy that a friend shared with me. When you are 18 to 21 years old, you're in the first quarter. At age 35, you're at halftime. By the time you get to 50, you're completing the third quarter. From 51 to 69, you're in the last quarter. 17 and older, you're in overtime. Well, I'm in my last quarter trying to get to overtime. My grandnieces and nephews always ask me, Uncle Irving, why are you always reading the Bible? I said, I'm cramming for my final exam. So let me leave you with this wonderful quote from Benjamin Mays, who was a renowned educator, teacher, and mentor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he said, it must be borne in mind the tragedy of life does not lie in not reaching your goal. The tragedy lies in having no goal to reach. It isn't a calamity to die with dreams unfulfilled, but it is a calamity not to dream. It is not a disaster to be unable to capture your ideals, but it is a disaster to have no ideals to capture. It is not disgrace not to reach the stars, but it is a disgrace to have no stars to reach for. Not failure, but low aim is a sin. William Penn College, aim high. Thank you. Thank you.
Before we sing the alma mater, I want to remind all of you that there is going to be an open forum with Dr. Jones tonight at 7 o'clock in the MTC, and it is very informal. Students come ask questions. Please encourage people to be there. And now we'll finish with the alma mater and the benediction.
Would you pray with me as we close? Father, we give you our thanks. And Lord, your word teaches us that all our days have been ordained before one ever came to be. And for that reason alone, we realize there are no accidents. And Lord, each of us has a purpose, and each of us has been called for a reason. And Lord, this is a springboard in this academic beginning of a new school year. And Lord, as Dr. Irving shared, we don't know the outcome of our story. We know where we are currently. And we look to you for your wisdom and for your guidance. And so, Lord, that as we begin this school year, we humbly look to you to lead and guide us through it and prepare our hearts to be change agents, as was shared this morning. Your word tells us in so many ways, but very simply, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your mind, with all of your soul, with all of your strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself. I pray if we get that right, Lord, we will see great progress in unity. The book of Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 20 and 21 says, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is worked within us, to him be the glory in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen."